be reading chapters 7 and 8 of Mummies in the Morning, but first, check out this meme that I made for you. Looks like one happy seal to me. Today we are going to be reading chapters 7 and 8. Like I said, chapter 7 is called The Scroll, and chapter 8 is called The Mummy. So I'm just going to be combining chapters 7 and 8 together into one video, and then 9 and 10 into the other video because the chapters are a little bit shorter. So we left off in chapter 6 with Queen Hootopee, and she was trying to read Jack and Annie were trying to read her the hieroglyphs, as we can see over there. But first, we're going to be starting off with chapter 7, The Scroll. Chapter 7, The Scroll. Jack put the scepter and his notebook and pencil into his pack. He and Annie followed the Ghost Queen deeper into the pyramid until they came to some stairs. The stairs, said Jack and Annie. The Ghost Queen floated up the stairs. Jack and Annie followed. The Ghost Queen floated right through a wooden door. Jack and Annie pushed on the door. It opened slowly. They stepped into a cold, drafty room. The Ghost Queen was nowhere in sight. Dim torchlit the huge room. It had a very high ceiling. On one side was a pile of tables, chairs, and musical instruments. On the other side of the room was a small wooden boat. The boat, said Jack. What's it doing inside Queen Hootopee's pyramid? Asked Annie. Maybe it's supposed to carry her to the next life, said Jack. He and Annie went over to the boat. They looked inside it. The boat was filled with many things: gold plates, painted cups, jeweled goblets, woven baskets, jewelry with blue stones, small wooden statues. Look, said Jack. He reached into the boat and lifted out a clay jug. The jug, said Annie. Jack looked inside the jug. What's in here? He asked. What is it? Asked Annie. Jack fell down inside the jug. It feels like a big napkin, he said. Folded cloth, said Annie. Jack reached into the jug and pulled out the folded cloth. It was wrapped around an ancient-looking scroll. Jack slowly unrolled the scroll. It was covered with wonderful hieroglyphs. The Book of the Dead, whispered Annie. We found it. We found her book. Oh, man. Jack traced his finger over the scroll. It felt like very old paper. Queen Hootopee, called Annie. We have it. We found your Book of the Dead. Silence. Queen Hootopee. Then another door on the other side of the chamber creaked open. In there, said Annie. Maybe she's in there. Jack's heart was pounding. Cold air was coming through the open doorway. Come on, said Annie. Wait. No, said Annie. She's waited 1,000 years for her book. Don't make her wait any more. Jack put the ancient scroll into his backpack. Then he and Annie slowly started to cross the drafty room. They came to the open door. Annie went through first. Hurry, Jack, she said. Jack stepped into the other room. It was nearly bare, except for a long gold box. The box was open. The cover was on the floor. Queen Hootopee, called Annie. Silence. We found it, said Annie. Your Book of the Dead. There was still no sign of the Ghost Queen. The gold box glowed. Jack could barely breathe. Let's leave the scroll on the floor and go, he said. No. I think we should leave it in there, said Annie. She pointed to the gold box. No, said Jack. Don't be afraid, said Annie. Come on. Annie took Jack by the arm. They walked together across the room to the glowing gold box. They stopped in front of the box, and they peered inside. Chapter 8, The Mummy. A real mummy. Bandages were wrapped around the bald skull, but most of the bandages had come off the face. It was Hootopee, Queen of the Nile. Her broken teeth were showing, her little wrinkled ears, her squashed nose, her withered flesh, her hollow eye sockets, plus the rotting bandages on her body were coming off. You could see bones. Oh, gross, cried Annie. Let's go. No, said Jack. It's interesting. Forget it, said Annie. She started out of the room. Wait, Annie. Come on, Jack. Hurry, cried Annie. She was standing by the door. Jack pulled out the Egypt book and flipped to a picture of a mummy. He read aloud, Ancient Egyptians tried to protect the body so it would last forever. First, it was dried out with salt. Ugh, stop, said Annie. Listen, said Jack. He kept reading. Next, it was covered with oil. Then it was wrapped tightly in bandages. The brain was removed by. Yuck! Stop! Cried Annie. Goodbye! She dashed out of the room. Annie, called Jack. We have to get rid of the Book of the Dead. But Annie was gone. Jack reached into his pack. He pulled out the scroll and the scepter. He put them into the mummy's skull. Was it just his imagination? Or did a deep sigh seem to shudder throughout the room? Did the mummy's face grow calmer? Jack held his breath as he backed away, out of the mummy room, out of the boat room, down the stairs. At the bottom of the stairs, he heaved his own sigh. A sigh of relief. He looked down the hallway. It was empty. Hey, where are you? He said. No answer. Where in the world was Annie? Jack started down the hallway. Annie, he called. Had she run out of the pyramid? Was she already outside? Annie! Help, Jack! Came a cry. The voice sounded far away. It was Annie. Where was she? Help, Jack! Annie! Jack started to run along the shadowy hallway. Help, Jack! Her cry seemed fainter. Jack stopped. He was running away from her voice. Annie! He called. He went back toward the burial chambers. Jack! There! Her voice was louder. Jack! Even louder. Jack climbed the stairs. He went back into the boat room. He looked around the room at the furniture, the musical instruments, the boat. Then he saw it. Another door. Right next to the door he had just come through. The other door was open. Jack dashed through it. He found himself at the top of some stairs. They were just like the stairs in the other hallway. He went down into the hallway. It was lit by torches on the wall. It was just like the other hallway. Annie, he called. Jack! Annie! Jack! She was running through the hallway toward him. She crashed into him. I was lost, she cried. I think this is one of those false passages built to fool the tomb robbers, said Jack. A false passage? Said Annie, panting. Yeah, it looks just like the right hallway, said Jack. We have to go right back to the boat room and out the right door. Just then they heard a creaking noise. Jack and Annie turned around. They looked up the stairs. Then they watched in horror as the door slowly creaked shut. A deep sound rumbled in the distance, and all the torches went out. So that is the end of chapter 7 and 8. I want you guys to pause this video and make a prediction as to what you think is going to happen in chapter 9 and who is going to be at the hallway and why all the torches went out. Well, that's the end of chapter 7 and 8, and we know that Jack and Annie lost Queen Hudapi, and Jack put the Book of the Dead into her mummy, I guess, in her gold tomb. And so I guess now we just got to find out what happens. Jack and Annie were lost because they have like false passages to try and trick the tomb raiders to get them confused and lost inside. That's it, guys. Make sure you check out the Google Forms that I put on for chapter 7 and 8. Make sure you answer those questions. Have a great rest of your day.